It has been an age since we visited Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord, and we're going to do that here again today. We're going to talk about this forum post that was made here May 28th, 2022. I know I'm a little late to this, unfortunately. But it's not unfortunate that I got a brand new puppy. I'm saying, unfortunately, it is late that I'm late to this. I got a brand new puppy, so it has been just consuming the last week or two of my life. But I did want to cover this as it is a pretty good indication of what is coming with the next major update, it looks like, to Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord. Now, I'm just going to be 100% transparent before we hit through this whole list. Banner bearers and a number of other things that they said they are working on are not coming in what looks to be the next major update to the game. They said that is coming, it's just not planned just yet. They're still doing some extra time on it, and we'll get to that at the end of this video. But if you were looking forward to seeing that in this list, you will not see it until the very end. And I wanted, again, just be transparent as I typically am in these upfronting the knowledge in my videos. So we're going to go through this here today, and a lot of this is really good quality of life improvements, and it does a lot of stuff to kind of improve upon the existing game. The real question you're probably asking yourself before we dive in is there any more content that is being added? Now, there is not direct content in the sense of, hey, all the gameplay loop will feel, I think, very similar, but I think it'll be altered enough that it'll have more immersion to it. Crafting, though, will get another good overhaul, a really, really good overhaul in here. And there's also an expansion to the way that the AI will interact with you, so you don't really feel like you're placed in a world and you're just doing what you want and there's AI there. It feels like the AI is going to actually not necessarily pull you in directions, but give you incentives to do certain things. And I kind of like that. And there's also going to be a respec system added into the game, a change to the way that combat skills is done. So I think that while there is no content being added in this patch, and again, that's fine, I suppose, until we get stuff like banner bearers and the full Steam Workshop integration and so on and so forth. I think it's a good place to be, and it's a good place to be for quality of life improvements on things that I didn't really even think needed improvements, and I really like what we see so far. So let's jump into this whole thing on what the future of Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord looks like in its next patch. And we'll start here with cutscenes for the new Near Hearth and Home. So cutscenes or scene notifications were first teased in our Future Plans post. Since then, we have created a number of these animations for different story and world events to add more weight to them. They presented a multidisciplinary challenge. So it's been something that they're going to be integrating into the game, and it'll be a great way to just kind of feel like there is some gravitas towards maybe a peace declaration, an execution, a death in the family, stuff like that. So I like that there's going to be, again, a little more of a sense of immersion, right? And that seems to be kind of the theme of this patch, or I'm calling it the patch. I don't know if this is all planned for one patch or a series of patches, and they're kind of, hey, here's the stuff that we're like 80 or 90% done with, and this is what we're going to show off and integrate soon. But I do think that they're trying to make the world feel more alive and a little bit more interesting, which I think is really, really good. Also, we get a little bit of scenes here. So over the course of the development, our focus shifted away from smaller locations and more towards ensuring greater variety and higher quality in core gameplay areas. So if you are not familiar with this, they have redone the town and the castle scenes. And what that means is the layout of them, how they all kind of work. Most importantly, the nav mesh for those scenes. And that was resulting in improved AI movement during sieges. So we can see here that they've been working hard on creating the remaining town scenes, which will offer new siege challenges as well as additional battle terrains to cover further regions of interest. Naturally, we also continue to improve our existing scenes. So a nice bit of improvement here. And right now, the castles and the town scenes that have not been overhauled, there's just a handful of them that get recycled, right? All the ones that have been overhauled, each one is unique and different. So it looks like they're trying to move in that direction to finish off, like they said, the remaining town scenes, so they all feel unique, which is quite good. Now for sieges here, they did say they've done a little pass in the past on them, quite a few passes actually, but what they'll be working on is kind of helping out with the gameplay of sieges and trying to give it a further bit of polish, right? It still can get a little janky and get a little choppy. So to give a recent example that they're working on, we overhauled the way that both the AI attackers and defenders use troop transfers between formations and sieges. This was done to reduce transfers at inconvenient times in quick succession or with poor overall oversight, which could lead to large numbers of soldiers being transferred from opposite sides unnecessarily. So this is a good improvement to either defending or attacking to to hopefully actually defend places that are valuable and attack places that are weak. So hopefully we'll see how that works itself out, and any of the other improvements that are not in this list. It just says this is just one example of improvements that they're doing to make things have more polish for sieges, and I'm very excited to see what those are. We always get some sort of siege touch every single patch, and every time I'm excited to find out more and more. Like we got the siege ladders fixed and now the siege towers, so that's in a good place. Battering rams are getting there, but there are still some things I'd like to see improve with sieges, and hopefully that is a step forward. With battles here, we are getting a change to the way that the battles work. So what they're working on is how reinforcements and which reinforcements enter the battlefield, and they're trying to kind of get rid of that reinforcement pop, right? So basically the reinforcements just appear out of nowhere and they pop onto the battlefield. You might not even know you're in the reinforcement spawn zone. You run through the army and you're going to go back around to start shooting them or attacking them on your horse and spawn there's a bunch of soldiers there. Or maybe you've pushed the enemy back beyond their spawn point, and every time their soldiers spawn in, your army already kills them. So they are working on changing that and having that work to actually not be the case. And I'm very curious to see what that means, like how you're going to spawn these units in to actually work with your graphics restriction on your battle size. So very interested to see what that one looks like. Armor effectiveness, one that has been a huge topic. And for those that don't know, pretty much everything from tiers 1 to 4, armor feels kind of like paper. And even at tier 6, when you have just the absolute heaviest armor across the board, it still doesn't feel that great. So it looks like they're making some adjustments here and making armor more effective. But this will not adopt the warband system, but it will go towards stronger protection. I put this in Scion because Scion, is that Scion? That's what it is. Because I don't know what the warband system is. And anyone in the comment section, please, by all means, go ahead and let me know. But armor effectiveness is finally getting a pass. They're finally taking a look at it because we've had pretty much the same issue with armor since launch, and I'm stoked to see that one. Another big thing too here is main hero battle death. So given all the extra armor, it may be time to raise the stakes. So your main hero can now die in battle, and you can turn it off if you so wish. But I think that's a pretty cool mechanic here, especially if you've got children, you want to kind of create a true persistent world. And that seems to be what they're kind of trying to make here, is a true persistent world that you stay in rather than making a whole ton of alts. And we'll go into that with the respec system and everything that's sort in a bit. But the combat mechanic improvements have been changed as well. So there are certain things that will knock down an opponent, dismount an opponent, and push them back, everything like that. So that's always kind of been random. Like, yeah, sure, you get the talent that it has a chance of happening. It seems now that they have removed that random factor, it says here, to allow a more reliable and predictable experience for players. So maybe there's a certain percentage chance instead. I'm not sure what that kind of looks like. But in addition to that, and the increase in armor, they've added resistance, a new resistance variable that is derived from character skills. So maybe you want your character who is a horseman to be better at being or have a better resistance to being dismounted. So that's how this will kind of play itself out. These combat mechanics will be improved upon and be more reliable, and you can reliably now resist or defend against them through your character skill, which I think is a really good complementing system. Because in the past I was like, okay, I get Shield Bash, it knocks them back more and stuns them for longer. Or you've got the other one that can dismount a knight when you are jousting, basically, when you go to night combat, more or less. And all those things, I never really saw them take place, even though I knew they were in the game. It would take very, very vacuumed testing to get it done, of constant repetition. So this seems to be that it'll actually recur way more frequently now. So the army AI has also had its improvements, made to it as well. So less patrolling, starving, recruiting, and better cohesion management. Overall, more sieging. So I want to see how that works, because sure, more sieging sounds kind of fun, but if they're sieging and abandoning and kind of doing what they're doing right now, where it has been fixed in the past, but it's not been fixed and it's kind of not staying fixed, I want to see how more sieging actually plays itself out, because it's kind of a nebulous term to say that no more patrolling, no more starving, no more recruiting, more sieging. What does that really mean? So I'm stoked to see it, that it's an actual note here, but I want to see that execution of what it looks like. And we also don't like peacetime armies. So I'm wondering if this means that if the nation is at peace, which it never is for more than like what feels like 2 days, then it will lose its standing armies, and maybe that means, of course, we know that it loses its mercenaries, right? But I'm wondering too if that means certain things about recruit availability and stuff like that, because that's part of these patch notes too, and we'll get in that in a little bit. But next up, we have party templates. So the idea of parties that reflect their leaders' preferences has gone through some iteration since we originally shared it. Nonetheless, we still intend to pursue the approach that weighs recruitment and upgrading according to this preference. The initial releasable implementation is close to completion, and we hope to soon evaluate it further based on player feedback. So I think that party templates apply to the AI and less to us. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's what it means. In fact, I'm almost positive. And I really want to see how that works out for my own clan and my own clan's parties that I'm setting out. Can I say, hey, I want you to have a more ranged focused party, which is actually really cool, because if you think about that, if I make 2 additional parties and I say, hey, I want you to be an infantry commander and I want you to only really recruit like X percentage of infantry soldiers, and I want you to be my ranged or archery commander and I want you to recruit X percentage of mounted horse archers and archers, and then that way when I assemble an army with those 2, I can maybe focus heavily on heavy infantry or solely on cavalry, whatever it is, to make for a cohesive army that you are using the party members' chief stats. Like, okay, hey, that guy's got 200 two-handed and 180 one-handed. So he's going to be my infantry commander because he's going to have a ton of sergeant skills that apply to that. And or captain skills that apply to that. You're probably wondering though, well, that doesn't happen. Sometimes your party members don't have those skills. Just you wait until we talk about the respec-aroo coming soon, my bro. Moving into the disorganized state too, we have that they're trying to kind of work it a little bit more. So basically the disorganized state as it is weakens the parties and armies after a recent challenge. So a siege, a big land battle, whatever it was, just makes it a little more... it kind of makes getting out of a fight less likely to just steamroll into another one, because I've seen armies that are very huge win fights and then just kind of leapfrog into another fight right away and still just be just fine. So this disorganized state kind of puts the brake on rapid expansion more or less, but it also kind of curbs the AI along the way. Item variety here. Now this pertains mainly to crafting pieces, which is great, but I would still like to see a lot of item variety just added into the game. Give me more Volandian shoulder pieces. Give me better Volandian. I would like to kind of be done with the 5,000 different helmet variations across this over X, this over Y, this over Z style of armor. I get it. I like the variation, but I think that the amount of head pieces in the game drastically, like astronomically outweighs the number of shoulder and head and chest pieces. And then don't even get me started on the amount of glove and boot. I think between glove and boot slots, there might be 20 to 30 pieces of armor versus chest, there's tons, shoulders, there's not as many, and whatever those numbers are all combined together, times it by 3, and that's how many head slot items you've got in the game. There's so damn many. So I would like to see some item variety there, but they said they've been working on a number of new crafting recipes, as well as making some of the existing pieces available across additional weapon types, which is really cool. And we also get an unlock to the, a crafting unlock overhaul, which is great. Because as we know right now, if you really want to craft a specific piece, you just kind of gotta make and hope you unlock it, and it goes from there. So they don't really like that all crafting pieces are unlocked from the same source. Instead, we want to provide more of a sense of specialization. Thus, future smiths, for example, need to craft axes to unlock axe pieces. I love that. I love that you're kind of specializing as a smith without having to skill specialize, because when you skill specialize, you kind of feel a little more locked into your choice, right? And this does have a certain sense of lock-in, but it's also easily pivotable, and it also kind of makes the life of a blacksmith a little bit more time intensive and labor intensive, which I like, because it fits from an immersion standpoint, right? Like if I'm going to be a blacksmith, I'm going to focus on my axes, and you know what? Maybe I want to start making some swords. Well, I don't know very much about that. I've been making all my axes. Sounds like I'm saying my asses, but still, I like this that you can know. I can be a master blacksmith and learn every single style of crafting recipe for every single weapon type. It just is going to take me a huge amount of time. And I really jive with that. I really, really like it. For some reason, it just reminds me of Ultima Online in a great way. I missed that game. Now onto simulation health, which is basically the way that the game kind of interacts with itself in and outside of your, well, with and without your interaction into it. So for one, the economy. And they found that there's two major issues with the economy. For one, some items were too profitable in general, while others didn't have enough regional price distinction. This made trade much less engaging than we would like it to be. Similarly, due to these same market dynamics, workshops were suffering as well. So if you bought the right one, there was little to no reason to engage with it again. So basically, they're saying that workshops right now are limited down to just go make a Khazate fur workshop, I think it is. And you're just going to have the most money. But they don't want that system, right? That kind of became a thing since launch is what's the workshop flavor of the patch? And every single patch has got a specific workshop that just gives you the most money. And they're trying to get away from that. They want it to be a dynamic system that can kind of come up and down. So they've changed. The changes we made to supply and demand have had promising results so far. One thing though with workshops too, we see a menu screen with workshops that kind of denotes their level, their capital expenditure, basically like CapEx versus OpEx or whatever. And I'm really curious to see more layered mechanics into workshops. It seems like the skeleton's there, they just haven't put anything onto it. And they're kind of teasing us with those things like level and expenditure and stuff like that. So I'm very curious to see if workshops will be getting another overhaul before the full launch of the game, which was supposed to have happened. Looks like it'll probably happen sometime at the end of this year. Who knows? Recruit balance. So recruits are not just plentiful, but oftentimes overly powerful. That's kind of what people were saying in the community. We went from having no noble lines and nothing but base recruits to nothing but noble line recruits now, because notables were just climbing in their power so much that now you just have, okay, I want a full scale badass army. I'll go to every town and get it quickly. So they've changed it. And so what happens here? We also recognize this as an issue and have made according adjustments to the way notables develop their troops. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens with that as far as how recruits will scale in armies, if they will always be infantry soldiers like they kind of are now, if the party preference will kind of kick in and say, hey, I recruited 50 recruits and my party preferences ranged, so I'm going to have a certain kind of split. Because right now, what it is it's like every army for its party kind of template is based off of its culture. Or I guess its faction, whatever. So a Sturgian army skews heavily towards infantry versus, say, a Belondian army is supposed to skew heavily towards Cav in a specific percentage split of everything. And I don't know what it is. This was shared to me from an internal beta tester like 3 years ago at this point, but 2 years ago, right? Yeah, 2020. God, time flies. But still, I want to see how that recruit balance kind of plays itself out. Now, AI prisoner management as well. By the time you get to kind of like a later game, you kind of have just the prisons overflowing with prisoners, right? Especially as nations start to really dwindle in strength. The other ones kind of destroy them in one fight, and it's a massive dirge of people in your prisons, and that is going to be looked at here. So we've been looking into a solution for this, and we'll likely share it with you soon. We don't really know what that solution is from this, but at least it's going to be addressed hopefully in this next coming series of patches. Now, child generation 2 is a big thing because you'd end up with this generational gap. So to address this, we will likely generate additional children with different ages at the start of the game for any clans that fall under a given member limit. As an extra, this should also make such clans more viable. So seeing more children in the game means that clans will kind of continuously have a rotating cast of players. So this should kind of keep the game alive, or at least clans alive and more viable as the game kind of progresses on in your simulation. Now, the big one here, of course, is with your character respecking here. So that will be added in. And here's the cool part about that. Instead, you'll be able to change the perks of your characters and clan members. Cue that rap horn. That is great, because how many times have you been playing with a specific character and you just didn't like the set of perks you got, or you're maybe brand new to the game, you don't know what you're doing, you pick some random perks, or you got a clan member and everything's crap on them, right? Like they've got just terrible perks for party leaders or for governors, and that's not what they are. So this is a great way to kind of get more use out of your existing clan members. Skill experience gains have been changed here as well, and this is kind of focusing mainly here. Fortunately, the aforementioned economy changes should help with trade, which is nice, but additionally, we've been working on more tailored adjustments for all combat skills, leadership, roguery, and engineering. A lot of these skills, leadership I've always said is one of the hardest but most necessary skills to, most hardest is not the term, one of the hardest and most necessary skills to have in the game, but it's very tricky to measurably increase it unless you are a vassal, you have another party, and you're creating an army, and you're going and doing everything together. So hopefully these changes should be significant. Also, changes to combat skills, roguery, and engineering should be quite fun as well. Roguery has had quite a number of passes to its experience gain, so I'm going to be curious to see how that works out. Right now, you could like break someone out of prison and get like 1,000,000 experience. You get a ton of experience for roguery, but very curious for that one. Immersion and quality of life. Like I said, this is again trying to take that big step into making a more immersive game. So there will be additional AI offers, because right now what happens is the AI will offer you a ransom and then they'll offer peace. That's it. So what they're going to do is expand that into marriage offers, mercenary and vassalization offers, which I really like, right? Like, hey, maybe you're just such a strong badass that, and this nation's really fighting, really trying to struggle for supremacy in a war. Well, they're going to offer you a mercenary contract or a vassalage. So I'm very curious to see if there will be some sort of attachment to those. Like, hey, here's the contract I offer monetarily as a mercenary, or for a vassal, hey, here's the contract I offer monetarily plus maybe an item, or maybe even a fief, like a castle, whatever it is. I'd really like to see how that expands. Now for encyclopedia, that's going to be changed around as well. So in the past, you could simply just look at the encyclopedia and see where characters are. But they're now going to kind of implement this fog of war for those that are outside of the reach of the player or their agents. So this is kind of it feels like a double-edged sword, but the next thing we talk about should help it out. Because the primary use of the encyclopedia for me personally is A, finding a wife or a spouse, or B, finding other clan members, right? Like finding other people I want to bring in my clan, like another really good surgeon, a really good party leader, a great combatant, a good horse commander, or a cav commander, whatever it is. So that's why I use the encyclopedia first and foremost. And I'm very scared to see how that kind of conflict with that process, because while it is fun kind of walking around and trying to find those characters, it can be at a level of tedium because there's no reliable way to get a bead on any of these top tier characters. Now, with the new party management options, that might change things. So clan members can, at times, be a hassle to track down and manage. So that immediately answers my issue right there, right? To address this, we have been exploring new options to send, recall, and exchange them. So it'll be very interesting to see if there's just like, hey, here's, every week, here is a certain offering of clan members that are looking to join, like hey, they're sorters for hire or whatever, or you've got one you can say exchange it for, hey, I've got maybe a surgeon and I want to exchange this for a higher trade character, or someone that's going to be a better governor, whatever it is. And then I now have the respec system, so I can get them and respec them however I want. So I do like this system, and I hope that these two play well together. I'm a little wary of it just because of how tricky it can be to find people in the game and how I really use that encyclopedia to track them down. Hopefully this kind of creates that builds that system into the game, because even using the encyclopedia to track them down is not that easy. You have to go to towns and it updates what they say, like, oh, last seen here, right? And every time you go to a new location, you just have to keep going into those towns to get that updated location on those potential clan members, hoping you find them. So hopefully this kind of streamlines the process. But civilian scenes here have been improved here. So mainly though with castles, they were saying that castles are pretty much barren, while towns are very lively, right? They're filled with merchants, they're filled with townsfolk, people to talk to, town guards, everything. And castles did not feel that way. So this should be improved in future versions of the game as we increase the population and their use of animation points in a number of settlements. That should be fun when it comes to both settlements and castles. World map and associated visuals here is kind of tweaking the way that the map works, resolving issues with party teleporting, floating, and rotating among a number of other tweaks. Of course, we also continue to polish the actual map. And honestly, the world map has gotten better and better and better since the game came out. It used to be such a resource hog. You'd be on that world map and be like, enjoy this 30 frames per second. If you're playing on a PC, it feels like you're playing on a PS1. And it just kind of enjoy what you got. And it's gotten way more stable and way more polished. So hopefully that kind of continues that track. I'd like to see a little bit more life on the world map as far as just random things that you can't interact with. Like, I don't know, a deer just running. Maybe I'm just kind of speaking out my ass here, but just have the world map kind of feel less like me navigating bandits and enemy and allied armies and more like, okay, well, there's actual life to this. You walk by a town and you can just see little tiny itty bitty people on the map just looking at each other or talking to each other or tilling a field, whatever it is. That it doesn't need to be super dense, but just have it break up the monotony of just planes, planes, trains, and automobiles. No, planes, trees, bandits, and then armies. Like, I just have a little bit more going for it. Now, horse sounds have finally been revised, and I'm making that kind of jokingly, but improving the audibility of approaching horses and fix some bugs in the occlusion system that prevented some sounds from being played. This is an ongoing work, and more improvement will arrive as time passes. So hopefully that's got a really impactful thudding sound when the horse just starts to get a good charge in on you. And for those that truly thought this was a necessary thing, horse physics sounds to make it more impactful when they die. Not something I was hoping for, but it's happened. Also, ambient upgrades. So quad ambience were another topic in our future plans post. They are great. They are a great means to make scenes sound more believable, and our work on them is ongoing. A few of the ambients have been updated to quads, and we fixed some crucial spatialization bugs while we were at it. So that should be great there as well. Some localization changes, and then a ways ahead. So this is some stuff that's kind of coming up. As the attentive reader will surely have noticed, there are some topics that we haven't covered yet. In our future plans, we spoke about banner bearers, claimant quests, sally outs, and vocalization. So a full set of vocalization for the game that is being worked on. These are all areas that we are still pursuing, but they will require some time yet. Once we have made some more progress on them and other topics, we'll be happy to share further details. So overall, a great set of additions to the game, a lot of really nice quality of life. Like I said, that respec is really good. I really like this party management options, and I hope it plays well with this new Fog of War system and encyclopedia, and I don't feel bogged down. I like the kind of changes to the way the AI interacts with the map and the simulation. I think that's really fun. The party templates and recruit balancing is great. The economy is really good to see. I do get a little wary because a lot of times economy fixes can sometimes just break the game wildly, but we do have those combat mechanics and the armor effectiveness changes. So these are some really good changes coming in this patch or the next one or two, and I'm really stoked to see them. Hopefully we'll get this in the next week or two to kind of be able to put it through its paces in a beta branch. I'd really love to jump back into Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord. I've just kind of been putting stuff on hold while we've dealt with Warhammer 3, and then with the Fate of Iberia DLC, and then with Demon Hunter. So all these things, and hopefully we're at a point now where we can return to Calradia as Tale Worlds releases another beta branch. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Are you liking this kind of incremental improvement upon the game, this polish that kind of is hopefully going to come out into a better product come full launch? I know we're at 2 years into our early access, and I'm hoping for a Steam Workshop integration in this patch. If we get Steam Workshop integration, I think this game will finally get that ramp up that it deserved at the beginning, that should have ramped up into a launch of the game at the end of the year. I mean, COVID aside, obviously, right? That's really going to put a damper on things and how it works. But the Steam Workshop is just going to be so huge because there are so many mods to this game as is, and those mods are amazing. And being able to reliably roll out updates to your mods with updates of the game, it just helps for such a cohesive modding community, and it makes for a way better experience trying to jump into those mods because, dude, you can just blow your tits off with the mods in the game right now. The Game of Thrones mod, the Lord of the Rings mod, the fucking Warhammer mod. There are so many good ones. Not to mention, of course, the one that brings you back to antiquity, right? And you sink back into a Roman soldier. So a lot of fun to be had here in the future of Mountain Blade 2. They did do a really big pass on this most recent 1.7.2. with multiplayer and improving a lot of things there. So hopefully we get a conversation about the multiplayer hosted servers that they said are coming with the launch of the game. I think that map, that the Steam Workshop integration, those hosted servers, and the full launch with everything that they've promised up to that point, you know, like these guys right here, I think it'll give a huge resurgence to the game because it'll just be in such a great state. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Go ahead and let me know in the comment section below about how you feel about a lot of these improvements. What are some things that you really want to see improved to the game? What are some things that you're excited for that you didn't think needed to be improved that you saw from this list? Whatever it is, let your comments be known below. But as always, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.